Hi everyone, this is Jen from Jane Metamorphosis.
Hi, I'm Monifa Harris. I'm a voice confidence coach.
I'm so happy that we're coming back to this little bubble of ours. Do you feel cozy? It's hot actually,
Yes.
very hot.
After all that breathing, we
Oh
got a lot
yeah.
of energy going.
Oh yes, we just breathe together. Can't, I just enjoy so much breathing with Monifa. She is amazing. I remember I got support from you last year, just through the whole breathing process. You're such a gem. You're such a gem.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
So, my dear Monifa, so today I just feel called to explore with you even deeper, as you know, our authenticity project, right? And I realized I forgot to even question more about your personal journey because authenticity is your jam. Authenticity is your jam. And I want to know how you actually started from, I know you were in biology pre-med, and then you were doing opera performance, you're a master of it. How did you come all the way to voice coaching, by the way, to help people to just build their confidence through their singing voices? I want to know. I want to know more.
Yes, whenever I think about this story, my short answer is the long way. How did I get from one thing to another? The long way. Yeah, I started out pre-med biology. I was in the honors track program at FSU when I started college. And I knew I wanted to be a pediatrician from the time I was 8. And then I got into school and I got into the environment and I was like, I don't want to work with these people. So when I got that realization, I prayed. I prayed and I thought about it and I was like, what do I really want? What I really want? And I wanted to do music. I'd always loved music. I
Yeah.
at the time was predominantly a instrumentalist. So I played clarinet, piano, saxophone, flute, trumpet while I was in high
Oh my
school.
God.
Um, but I had always wanted to sing. And that's what I realized that if I was going to do it, I might as well do what I wanted to do. And that's how I started because I went into music education initially and I chose voice as my instrument. And and that's how I started on the music and voice track. And then I thought it would be easier too. I thought voice would be easier, and it's just not. It's not. But then I switched my major to performance when I fell in love with singing. I just fell in love because
Mm,
the it's really easy to do, by the way, because like the hormones, the happy hormones that are released when you're singing with your full body are pretty extensive. So you get addicted to them if you don't have a lot of other places where you're getting them, right?
yeah.
And so that was part of it. And so I switched my major to performance and then eventually got my master's in vocal performance. And then, like, when I had been performing for a little bit, I've been auditioning, and I could just feel like kind of the shadow side of the industry starting to change what music meant to me and what it meant to sing, what it meant to perform. And just put up a big stop sign. I was just like, no, I'm not going to be one of those bitter, people where the industry kind of sucks the life out of you, if you allow it. And some people are stronger than others. But I knew that's what was happening because I was starting to get resentful and I was starting to get really hardened, like really cold about
Mm,
like how things had to happen. And so that's when decided to stop auditioning because um, I was happy with my voice and I was no longer looking for the external validation, right?
yeah.
So it was this idea that just kind of started a seed that was like, I can't keep doing this. And it didn't just mean like in my singing and performance, it meant how I was teaching as well, because there was this idea that there's one right way to do it, that there's like, that there's obviously something that's wrong with your voice, otherwise you'd be successful. And then, when we tell you that you're good enough, then you can be successful, and this kind of thing that was being perpetuated just by doing the work the way it's been done for however long, right? And so I wanted my studio to be a place where people knew that their voices were whole, before they came to me, and that we were just having exploration of what it means to be aware and conscious, and co-creating that, and so that's why it's like a long road, right? That's a long story, but but it's
Actually,
it's true.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm feeling so intrigued by asking more because when you're saying the shadow side of the industry, right? Can you share a little bit more about that? Because you know what? When we are walking on this journey of authenticity, sometimes I have to say I'm grateful to be kicked by the shadows. So I get to see what was actually inauthentic of me that's participating in the picture before I'm willing to merge into, what it feels authentic to me in the next milestone, sort of.
This is true, and it did. It took me experiencing the full frontal of that in order for me to say, "Yeah, no. Like, this is this is not who I wanna be," right?
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things that my teacher told me when I left my grad school was like, you have to take yourself more seriously. Like, if you don't take yourself more seriously as an artist, then people won't realize what kind of voice you had. And so that was something that I had constantly was in the back of my mind,
Mm,
right? And
mm,
so I
mm.
was putting on this kind of professionality of, "Oh, I am a worthy opera singer." And I couldn't hold it because it had nothing to do with me, and because of the way I express, like if I held it into like using my voice, and my voice would be restricted and it didn't
Mm-hmm.
work, you know? And so I would kind of put on this like kind of rehearsal mask, and then I would shift for for when I was singing, and then I would but it's exhausting. You know how that uses so much energy when you're switching back and forth in your personalities to to look a certain way for other
Yes.
people. And so that's, but that's one of the reasons I felt like I had to change it, because there's like kind of this idea that you
Mm,
had to be super smart and super knowledgeable about the history, and you had to know all the names, things that are just not my strengths. So I was constantly
mm,
putting on this
mm, mm.
facade of my intelligence, when my intelligence doesn't really lie there. My intelligence lied in my voice. Like, that was where my strength lied, uh, and so yeah, and so when like, even the auditions, like having to put myself as a certain way when I was making emails, so it all gave me like
Mm,
high
mm,
anxiety,
mm.
like that it had to come out a certain way for them to like me. And the shadow side of the industry is essentially that there's very few that get in, and so it's very restrictive. You have to pay in order just to be seen and listened to, and that may or may not mean that you actually get seen or listened to. You can pay for an application,
Mm.
and um and so that they can look at it, and then they could still not accept you for the audition, right? And they can be only auditioning for one role, but you're still paying for an application.
Oh my gosh.
It's a very is there a lot of like misvaluing. Like, if you think
Yes.
about even just how women are treated in the
Mm,
society,
mm.
like I feel like singing or singers are the women of the classical world, right? Or
Yep.
even the musical world. Like, it happens the same way in jazz. It happens the same way. Like, they're not respected, um, and they usually are women, and then the men get paid more than the women, and the men get more respect, and they get more things. They get like hotels and stuff. Where when you're young, when you're growing in the industry, a lot of times you're paying your way for all of that. You're paying for your own travel. You're paying for your own hotels, to the
Yeah.
audition, for the performance. Like, so it takes a lot from you just to be considered, right? And so that's kind of the shadow side of the industry, because that doesn't allow for people who don't have any money whatsoever. And it
Mm,
doesn't
mm, mm.
allow, and then, with the second, kind of layer of me being African American, where like I could be putting all this money out when they have no desire to hire somebody, with my skin color for a role, right? And it could just be a artistic decision, not necessarily because they wouldn't go to dinner with me, right? It's just because that's not how they see the role, right? So there's all these things that come up about identity.
Oh gosh,
And
yes. Hmm.
like when you're sharing your voice, it's so intimate. And so when you're putting yourself on the line like that, time after time with no reciprocation, right? Like it's a little toxic. It's a little toxic. And that's like
Thank
the
you.
good side.
Yeah, I would
That's the
say,
good side. Like it's not even talking about conductors and like Me Too movements and such like
wow.
that. Like it's huge.
Thank you so much for sharing the underground story.
Under it's the under it's
It's
the
very
shadow
underground.
side.
But seriously, I mean, because I'm sure you feel very ignored and challenged in so many ways that prompted you to say, do you know, enough is enough. Like, why am I putting up with this? This is not originally what I wanted, right? Because while you're sharing your story, I can fully relate, even though we're from different industry. I was in the corporate, the IT world, right?
Mhm,
But at the same
mhm.
time, I was putting up a persona as well for people to like me, for my client to like me, for my bosses to like me, for whatever that I was trying so hard to wear that programming suit, right? That programming
Yeah,
suit
and
that's
to fit
heavy
in.
to fit
Yeah.
in. But
Yeah.
inside, you feel like an oddball still, right? And then you don't know how do you fix yourself to feel more comfortable.
Right, and then like in music, it's kind of like, okay, so you want me to fit in to get the job, but then I have to be like this higher expression of my unique self in order to stand out as a soloist on a
Hmm.
stage, right? And it's really interesting because again, it's like that kind of shifting back and forth. And it's the same kind of request. If they're telling you to fit in to get the job, but then to stand out in your productivity or to stand out in your creative development or to
Hmm.
stand out, in your problem solutions, right? Like you have to be higher in that way, but then you must fit in and make yourself smaller in these other ways. And it's that yo-yoing that really puts a wear and tear on the soul. It really kind of does. It just, at least
Hmm.
for me, it zapped my energy like to no end. I had no space for anything else. It was like, and it was that all the time. It was like if you didn't constantly work, then you weren't worthy, right? Well, you're not working hard enough, and you can never say, well, I should have gotten it, or I should have gotten a chance, right? It was always, well, work harder, do better,
Hmm.
you know, get shinier, you know, sing louder. Like there's 1,000 different reasons why you just decided that you had to do better. And so it was that constant fighting to be better. So it was a lot of work. And I was willing to do it because I love the work. I love the music, right? Not even, and it's so funny because not even necessarily as a genre to like immerse myself in, but on in the environment of allowing that to move through me.
Hmm.
That's where I was like, it was just something that I felt like I wanted to be a part of. And and so that's also what moves me back to the work now. I'm just now starting to move back in that direction. So
I want to ask even more now. Okay, so what you just shared is so potent because I have a visceral feeling in me that's kind of like, okay, so when you are being directed or redirected into your endeavor, like, okay, voice, now I'm going to own my voice in my own way, not in the industrial type of way, right? Not in
Yeah,
anybody's benchmark. Now it's, I'm allowing myself to go alone. I'm leaving the tribe. It's a tribal consciousness, to be honest.
it
Me
is. Yeah.
leaving the IT world, that's a hell scary time of my life. I was like, okay, I know that's not where I'm going because I don't want to be there. And then, okay, I don't know. I know what I don't want. Now, what do I want? Who am I anyway? So start detaching from that tribal consciousness of who I think I was, or the corporate selves. I'm here to climb the ladders, right? I'm here to
Mhm.
impress people, and taking all those titles off my whole entire human being. Who the hell am I, right? So from that tribal consciousness, we depart from that place, and then like, okay, heroine's journey, here I go, and who the heck am I right now? That type of thing.
Totally. It totally turns into that. It's like, I don't even know what I'm doing. I don't know. Like this thing that takes up 99% of your life becomes like
Yeah.
not a factor anymore.
Mm,
And at least not in the old way of perceiving it. And the first kind of take back I did though was that I was no longer singing for other people. The first take back I did was like, I'm singing for myself. When I sing, it's because I feel like it. When I sing, it's
mm,
because I want to. When I sing, it's because it makes me happy, right? Instead of because it had turned into like the last couple years, it turned into I sing because I get paid for it. I
yeah.
sing um, because they want me to do this thing, and so it's my job, right? And that's kind of the one thing I never wanted, even when the reason I knew I chose medical to begin with when I went to college is because I didn't want music to be a job because it was that important to me,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And so to have that experience, I was just like, no, this is not, what I'm doing this for. And so that's where my premise that when we start um, using our voices for ourselves to restore ourselves, to heal ourselves, then we can decide if we would like to offer it to others, right? But until that work is done for ourselves, then we're often giving out of lack or even
Sure.
just for the point of being seen. And it doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I stopped asking for validation, people started asking me if I wanted to do jobs without
Mm-hmm.
auditions.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Like as soon as I made that decision, right? Which, and everybody says, well, you have to audition, you have to do all these things. And as soon as I said, no, I'm not asking for your permission to sing, I'll sing if I feel like it, right?
I just feel like this is such an empowering place to be, because where your, let's say, authentic self is less being pre-programmed, or taking on all the conditionings, right, from the outside world, from the culture, from the family, from your surroundings, educational system, or whatever that is, right? And you allow yourself to start saying, no, I don't need those validation anymore. I don't need those. I survive without those. And that actually gives you such empowerment to do exactly what you want. Because same here, I felt scared at first because I'm leaving the tribal consciousness, like, okay, so who am I right now? I have no idea. And then journey into, okay, at least let me just get out of my comfort zone to try stuff and to see if this is what I want to experience, right? At the same time,
Hmm.
I have to start allowing myself to see things differently. Like, it's not about moving out of the comfort zone, but it's about expanding our comfort zone, right? So
Mm.
because when we are coming out of the comfort zone, oh my God, I can't handle that. There's a lack of mentality is there, right? The fear
Yeah.
comes up, it bubbles up,
Uh,
like I can't manage it. right?
Yeah. Well, an uncomfortable meaning, not possible or even like hard, right?
Right.
Like it's out of my realm of experience and out of my realm of possibility. It's sometimes what we make that mean,
Yes.
and it doesn't necessarily have to mean that. It can just mean, oh, it's something that I get to experience as an adventure, right?
Mm. Mm.
But I know for me, that's not how I felt. I did not feel like it was an adventure. I felt like I was weird and that like I was the only person living through this
Yes.
feeling of like kind of split identity for a while of like, well,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
well, yeah, I'm an opera singer and I don't sing. Like I don't sing, you know, as a performer for a long time. I wouldn't even tell people
Mm.
you know? Well, even when I was a performer, I had a hard time because of the imposter syndrome that comes from always looking for validation, right?
Yeah.
Um, so, when I stopped, then I was sure that I couldn't call myself an opera singer anymore. And so yeah, so a lot of my development comes from that experience of like trying things on and what does it mean to me? What does it
Mm.
mean for me?
Mm.
And, and yeah, and owning that idea like, well, I get to make it mean what I want it to mean. And this, it means what I say it means.
Yeah, so we need to, well, not need to, but we get to actually redefine everything that we thought it meant this and that, right? And
Yes,
starting get curious, like, why did I even think that's the only way it means? Because those are not from
exactly.
us. Those are not from us. We took it from
And
somebody else's, or
right. Somebody else's experience, somebody else's feeling, somebody else's, how it happened for them, right? And so what that must mean for us, like we do. And that's what, was so true about what you said about that shadow, actually you being formed against that shadow because it made you question everything, right? It made you
right,
question
totally.
like, "Oh, that can't be right," you know? And so you create your own definition so that you can say, "Okay, well, this is true for me," you know? It makes you very clear on what you decide to choose on what that means now moving forward.
Yeah, and I just felt like the word confusion has been like sort of, it's not a good word, right? People try to avoid confusion most of the time. But I feel like in the sense that we're discussing here, like how do you merge from a place of conditional self, right? You're being so heavily conditioned by others. Now you're
Yeah.
merging to your own version of authentic self. There's that gray area between worlds, and that's a lot of confusion. And I just feel like it would be great if we embrace confusion in such a way with compassion. Like, do you know what? When we feel confused, awesome. Clarity is, it's getting closer, closer, and closer, right? That's why I'm feeling confused. Yeah, let's
Yeah.
start allow ourselves to rewire that way. Like it's okay to be confused because something is about to pop out. We don't know yet, but
Yeah, and this is so powerful, especially because when you say it, like I believe it, because yeah, because of your makeup, we've done each other's energy work,
yeah,
charts, and so that's just part of an element of the way you create too. Is like you can
right.
be completely confused, and then all of a
Mm.
sudden, that light bulb turns on,
Yes,
right?
yes,
And but that is true. Like I think of it so much in voice when we just allow for spaciousness,
mm.
then anything is possible. Like
Mm.
literally, the more we let go, the more we have access to our full range, the more we have agility and capability and even strength, more strength will come online, the more we are open and available for it. And it's the same thing. Like we call it confusion, but it's possibility. It's just not yet defined. And in the undefinition is the possibility for anything. So you can learn
Yes,
to get excited about it if you recognize like that's where you are, you know?
yeah. So I just feel like by you and I, we're sharing our story, our journeys. we want other people to know that it's okay to feel like you're walking between worlds when you're going through transitions, because it's not easy to just click that on and off button, right? That switch. Authentic self showed up, right? I hope.
Nope.
No, it doesn't work for me. It doesn't work for Monifa either. But what I feel the most precious is that through the gray area, it's a
Oh,
really.
I got a fruit.
Oh, are you? Do you see me moving here? Okay. Can you see me
Yeah,
over there?
you
Okay.
are now. It did
Okay.
freeze
Good.
for a second.
All right. So I was about to say, like in the gray area of that walking between worlds, right? I think what is actually so potent is for us to trust our intuition, because we have no outside guidance to follow, right? We're not going
Hmm.
backwards, listening to all the other like past conditioning type of criterias, right? So now what? So our animalistic type of instinct has to show up.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is totally part of that process, right? Because it's kind of what I was speaking about in that time period where, like, again, my voice, I was only using it for myself. If I, to make myself feel better, to feel, to feel bigger or stronger or just more whole, And it's that same thing. When you use your intuition, you're coming back to your self understanding, what is coming and what is true for you, just by knowing, by coming into yourself, by being in the presence of what is coming in and through you, right?
Mm,
That's all intuition is. And the more we listen to it, the more we get into that space, the more whole, the more sane we get to feel too. People think intuition is going to lead us into this like crazy, dark circumstance. I've even started not to love the way people were talking about, you know, um, enlightenment, right? Like we were
yeah.
talking about it like it's this whole dramatic experience. And it's just like, it's not that, it really isn't that. We really are just re recognizing our nature, right? We're remembering,
Mm,
right? And I love language because it tells you what we're
yes.
doing, right? In the form of the language, we're taking our members and reforming them, right? We're bringing them back into action around what they were formed for, right? So when we allow for that inner knowledge, then we get to remember who we really are,
Mm.
you know? And when you know who you really are, then then clarity will come, you
And,
know?
and first start off, this is not who I am, right? Process of elimination. This is not who I am. So I guess I am, yeah, more over here, not here.
That ain't
Yeah.
right?
But I love to know, like, okay, so during your between walking between worlds, how did you rely on your intuition? I know you have that such, oceanic depth of intuition that's guiding you. So you want to share a little bit more about, walking between worlds and listening to your intuition. How does that feel like to you?
For me, it was kind of like unstopping. It's so funny because that's actually your experience. So it was kind of like this unstopping of my ears,
Yeah.
right? Because how much I stopped hearing, how much I stopped listening to, in order to get the thing done,
Mm,
right?
mm,
And how much, like, how useless these ideas were because they couldn't get me to get the thing done. Right? And so I
right.
stopped listening, you know? And I had so much, like, because of who I am, right? I had so much to not listen to. like because there's so many emotions that would come through me that were not useful at any given moment in my mind, and were I was just getting a lot of information in and through my body that wasn't even mine to begin with, and not having the knowledge and being able to discern the difference. Right. So it is confusing for a while. It is like super confusing because you get more sensitive because you're listening.
Right.
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 And then it's just really loud. And then there's just like a lot of noise. And you just can't discern what's like trying to tell you something and what somebody else is. And then what is going to hold true as you move forward. And so I remember this period because it was probably some of the most foggy thinking I had in my life, because I was allowing for it because I had been so strict with myself to maintain that illusion of intelligence
Yeah.
you know, and and so I was just super foggy and I was super like I wasn't willing to commit to anything. I was just like, I don't know. I don't know. I may show up. Like my poor friends, like I don't even know how they dealt with me for so long because I wasn't willing to commit to anything because I didn't know.
Yeah.
Right. And then you just start getting urges, right? You just start getting like one becomes stronger than the other, if only because it's more seated. And you're like, you don't even know what that means at the time, but you just know, well, that's stronger. So I'll go that direction. And so, really, the kind of point that I remember is when I went up to Mount Shasta because my husband and I decided to on a crazy random decision that we had no money for. And we went up to Mount Shasta and I literally bought like a Thoth book and a crystal again, like with like we had no money. Like this like the end of our money was like the gas money and I would get up
Yeah.
there and to get these things. And it was my first crystal. I didn't even know what the names of crystals were at that time. I just chose one I was attracted to and could afford, right? And so I got it and then I took it and I would have it with me everywhere and like clarity started coming on and like
Mm.
things just started making sense and my intuition started getting clear like I started realizing that I was feeling other people's emotions and that it wasn't mine, and this is before I knew anything about anything, right? And that's when it started, and then when I finally looked up the piece was a fluorite,
Oh, wow.
right? And
Yeah.
so like those are the indicators of fluoride, like clarity,
Yes.
like it's good for neurology, right? Which is something that is true for my system. My system, because of the anxiety levels, especially at that time,
Mm.
like I was constantly in this kind of neuro hyper sensitivity kind of situation. And so it was aligning that, you know? And when I read the first time I read the definition of the energy for fluoride, I was like, "Oh my goodness." Like, this is exactly what I needed. And, the day before, my one of my close friends, her boyfriend asked me, he's like, "Something's different about you." He's like, "What's going on with you?" Right? And it was, and he was trying to be sensitive, but that's what he was talking about. Like, you're speaking clearly, like I know what,
Mm.
I can follow what you're saying. Um, and and I was like, the only thing that's changed is I got a piece of floor of crystal from Mount Shasta. And it was really interesting because that's when I started noticing that difference. And that's kind of what it looks like. Yeah, you get that urge, you follow it, and then it manifests for you in a way that you need, right? Like desperately.
I find it fascinating because when you were saying how you lean to intuition, you know, because for me, it's more like impulses, like inner fire just comes, right? And
Mm,
it's just a matter of whether I honor it or not in the moment, you know?
mm,
So mine is more like experiential. Like I just have to experience my impulses, in a wild child way, sort of. That doesn't make sense to people, but it makes sense to me only. And for you is also, it's such a, it's also that urge that you're, if but it feels like it's cooking underneath, right? Until it really arrived into, I don't know, your heart space or anywhere, and then it got manifested.
Yes, it is. It's kind of like this, um, like if I wanted to clarity quickly about my
Yeah,
intuition, I have to do this thing that's kind of a deep dive, and then like an immersion, right?
right.
Of like
Mm,
meditation, of voice, of something that's going to just immerse me in that realm of thought, you know? And yeah, so I feel like it is, it's kind of like I have to dip into the stream in order for me to be able to recognize the urge. Otherwise, it's just like things are moving through all the time. I feel a lot of things. Like there's a lot of movement in me. I break down motion as
yeah,
energy as movement, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
energy moving is emotion, and I have a lot of emotions because
Yes,
I'm
me too.
Cancer Sun and Moon and Scorpio rising. So there's plenty of water to experience in my
You're,
being.
yeah, you're busy swimming every day.
Lots and lots, lots of swimming.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. So I guess, like, for people who are watching by any chance, it's more about like honoring your intuition in your own way, because like how Munifa just demonstrated how she really swimming her emotions, that's how she navigates with her intuition. And Maya is more like, I'm going to just acknowledge my impulse and we're going to allow myself to experience things regardless, right? And not feeling bad about it, not feeling guilty about, doing certain stuff that I've never done before. So, what are yours, right? So, feel free to comment back, when you're watching this. Um, I just feel like authenticity itself includes so much. Like, I can hardly put in, like, a sequence of perspectives that we can even discuss about. But definitely, like Monifa, we have so much more that we're gonna bring onto the table, I feel.
Yeah, it's just like the tippy top, right? But because that's a whole nother thing, like what she just is leaving you with, this nugget of knowing what your intuition feels like when it's coming online.
Yes,
Because we're talking about two right now, like we're talking about water, we're talking about fire,
fire.
but there's wind. Like you can
Yes.
catch it in the air, you can sense it in the air.
There's
There's
earth. There's
earth.
earth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's just like earthing, right? You can get grounded and like just sense the earth move kind of feeling. And at least the earthy people that I know, they just like kind of know they have to, they're not really into the movement. They don't really appreciate it, but it's also something they won't try to deny because you can feel the earth move, right? Like it's
Yeah.
time, the movement is happening whether I want it
Mm,
or not.
mm, mm,
That
mm.
and it's a very sure, like they're very sure when they have an intuitive moment, or like, oh, I know something, so I can feel it. Like it's very visceral for earth people, I think.
Like an intuitive knowing, probably, right?
Yeah, there's also knowing, right? Like there's that knowingness where you just kind of, that it comes in and it's just real for you.
Mm.
That's like my husband. My husband has a lot of, like, it's just what do they call it, where they just clairvoyant, right? Like it just, the idea appears and it's just real, you know. And he gets a lot of that, especially when he's having conversations with people, because he connects so well, you know. Yeah, so you really just got to find, your version. What does it feel like for you?
So basically, in our me and Monifa, we're creating this video is for the purpose of how are we allowing ourselves to plug into our authenticity, but in our own way. But yet we get to also explore different facets of authenticity. We talk about what, like, walking between worlds. I mean, how are we going to break out of our comfort zone? But not that is actually expanding our comfort zone, right? How
Hmm.
are we going to embrace confusion, for example, right?
Right. And like that, even confusion can be authentic, right? It
Hmm.
doesn't, just because you don't know your mind doesn't mean you're less authentic.
Yes.
I think there's kind of an idea of that hanging out there. It's not true, right? You don't have
Yeah.
to be certain yet to be experiencing your own authenticity. Yeah.
I feel like we have a lot to deconstruct from this point on.
Yeah.
But we're gonna just keep this video, digestible enough. So we're gonna leave it here. But yeah, thank you so much, Monifa. I just love your presence.
Oh, thank you. This is so fun. I'm
I
so
know, me
excited.
too. Me too. Yeah, so everyone, so feel free to connect with us and share your thoughts about what intuition means to you, or how do you feel when you are not authentic, or how do you take yourself back to authenticity. We're welcoming to any of your beautiful share. And yeah,
Yes.
then we will see you soon.
I'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.